We have appealed to the government on several occasions to reconsider the issue of overtaxation of the Kenyans, and especially to incomes of those in the lower income bracket. This one factor has greatly affected the family income in a disproportionate way, leading to anger among Kenyans.
The country is going through a recipe of policy mistakes, failures, and shortcomings served in an authoritarian, paternalistic leadership style. We fear that consequences of the foundation laid in the first year of this administration could linger for years if nothing is done. This bad situation could easily get out of hand. We warned at the beginning that beyond a certain point, increasing taxes leads to lower collection. It has become real as Kenya Revenue Authority misses one revenue target after another.
All right, church leaders at the Catholic Church and then Raila Odinga from Azimio Coalition speaking about the state of the economy, talking about the taxes, that the burden is too heavy for Kenyans. And again, Gitonga Mukunji, or is it Mukunji Gitonga? Which is the order? Gitonga
Mukunji.
Okay, all right. Member of Parliament for Manyata joins us. And you see those concerns just a few days after the president spoke to the nation and said that we are now at a good place for the takeoff. I'm paraphrasing, not in those exact words. And he spoke very positively about the economy, of certain things that we have to stop doing, and we have stopped, of regularizing how we borrow, the strength of the Kenya shilling and such. But still, there are these concerns about the taxation, and people are looking at how the year started and how the year is just about to end. Are there solutions out of this, despite the concerns that the weight of the public debt is too heavy?
Yes, Sam, thank you very much for having me today. And it's my second time, so now I'm no longer making a debut.
Right.
Let me first say hi to people of Manyata constituency in Embu, who I represent, and also my young parliamentarians, who I am the chair. I would say that Sam, we just read the State of the Nation, and I was very happy with the president on coming out clearly on how things are, and he did not spare his words on the status of the economy today. And one thing that came clear is, yes, we have a lot of challenges with our economy, and yes, the measures that he's putting in place, number one, to actually control our debt, which includes what we call the Eurobond that is falling due in a few months. He came out clear on the measures he's taking. And one of the things that I've been saying myself is this conversation on taxation needs to actually anchor itself in the National Assembly. We need to have a conversation, and we need to actually see how we can be able to survive as a country, which has actually found itself in a challenging position in terms of its debt levels and its obligations in the international debt payment, and also the ballooned cost of cost of our wage bills and these other expenses. And I really pity the president as of right now, because he is in this position where if one simple mistake happens,
right,
we might find this country in a very challenging position. And that's why it's always good to consider all these things that are being coming one at a time. And this includes the issue of the shilling depreciating in the levels that we have never seen, issues to do with the depreciation bringing the issue of debt ballooning to the levels that we have seen recently. And all those things, they require some resources from somewhere. The taxation won't work much And I believe we have gotten to the limit where we cannot add anything else. But I believe there is also a chance of looking at how this country is able now to come back, do the production as the president gave in terms of measures of ensuring that this country go back to production. And one of the things that has happened of late is the fact that we have reduced immensely in the last 10 years. Our exports are 10% against our import. So there is a need to actually see where we are supposed to put our monies. And I believe, aside from taxation, there is the issue of how the taxes are being used. And I believe with the call on the issue of corruption going low, and government, which came out very clear during the State of the Nation, and also President clearly saying that he has to reduce on the government spending, unnecessary spending, then we can be able to actually channel our energies into having this country back to track. And that is something very important.
Mheshimiwa, you just said that the exports, Kenyan exports are 10% of imports.
Yes.
Are you certain about that?
Yeah, we are improving now.
No, I don't think it's accurate because according to the data of 2022, the export-to-import cover ratio is 35.1%. But in absolute terms, we exported 873 billion worth of goods. We imported 2.49 trillion worth of goods. So it's about a third. So the exports were a third.
That is
2022. Last year, the full year.
Okay, maybe I think when it comes to issue of importation, there has been a serious increase of late, because you find our food production between 2022 to 2023, we had to import a lot of food because of the issue of drought that was there for the previous 2-3 years. So maybe you can check your data again.
No, you just said 10%. And I'm telling you it's over 30%. So it's actually higher than what you're saying.
But you're talking of 2022?
Yes.
Yes. So there is a whole different time period. That
no, Honorable Mukunzi. I mean, the figures are from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics.
Yeah.
And I've told you in terms of value, the exports are about a third of the imports.
Even on the consideration of your 30%, it is also very low. It is on the lower cadre of what we are doing. And remember, this country, any pressure.
You said it's 10%. 10% is worse than a third.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Let's assume it's 30%. It is also on the lower side. And being on the lower side, it means that we are still depending a lot in what is the stability of the world. If anything goes wrong, this country can find itself in a challenge. So
I hear you speak quite eloquently about the depreciating Kenya shilling. First of all, what are citizens in Manyata saying? What are their views currently?
No, everybody is worried about the economy, to be very honest. You know, we have to be very candid on this. And either way, the only thing we can do is actually support what the government is talking about on the measures that it's taking. And I've told you, on the issue of production, issue of value addition, issue of ensuring that we put in money for fertilizer and ensure people start producing more. Those are issues that are actually giving Kenya hope that things will be better. But that aside, there's a lot of pressure on the depreciation of Kenya shilling. The pressure is too much, because any debt that was borrowed 2 years ago, right now has actually almost come to almost 50% increment on it. So there are all those things that you have to consider when you're talking about economy. But so I believe...
What is that value addition you're talking about? So is subsidized fertilizer to increase production, but what is the value addition?
So on the issue of value addition, the government has come up to support counties on issues to do with KAIP, so that they can start adding value. We have also pushed, and I'm also pushing in the National Assembly, issue of local consumption, local produce consumption bill, where we need to actually consume what we produce. I can just give you an overview, Sam, that 92% of our coffee is for export market. We only consume 8%. 90% of our tea is for export. we only consume around 10%. Macadamia nuts, that has become of late very famous in Kenya, almost 97% of what is produced is for export market. We produce a lot for export, and that is what we call the colonial mentality. Because Kenya was producing for things to go to other countries, remaining cases that we import now to consume. And that has been the case that has never even been reversed. If you look at our foodstuff, we need to look at how we are going to produce what we actually consume.
So are you saying,
export the rest.
Are you saying that when we export 92% of our coffee,
yes,
we end up importing it again?
Yeah, we import our coffee. We import what we consume on our tables today.
Same case to tea?
Absolutely, yes. And I'll give you a good example of a very famous coffee that you consume in your hotels. It is not packaged here. It is packaged outside the country. So reversing that is not an easy task. It is not going to take even 2 years.
Okay,
it's going to take 5 to actually more than 10 years to reverse the curve of how we do our things.
Okay.
The consumption of food, where we have never sat down and looked at what is required of our maize so that we can produce enough and we export the rest. Many countries have done that. They have been able to reverse the issue of the pressure of their currency. And if we don't do that, we'll always be affected with the external pressures that come from many quarters of this world. The fight, the oil issue, which is also a pertinent issue.
I hear you. We'll get back to that. But I have to say here, I haven't checked the statistics that you're providing us here, but we'll take them with utmost good faith.
Yeah.
Senator, tell me, because we hear the president speaking, should I say, bullishly about the state of the economy, that we're on the recovery path, that we're now more ethical. It's painful, but it is ethical on how we're dealing with, especially the issue of public debt and even the Kenya shilling itself. Do you get the confidence that the country knows what it's doing?
Sammy, what does a head of state do when his country is in trouble? He, first of all, issues a presidential speech, which then is meant to preoccupy the issues that are preoccupying his people. And the issues that the president discussed the other day, there's a young man who does media things for me. He engages me. He writes very well. And this is somebody who's been completely crazy about President William Ruto. You know these bloggers, you have one who does work for you. He likes the way you argue, but on the other side, he's on the other side telling me, I like the president. The young man sent me a message and said, I'm completely heartbroken with what the president has said. I said, why? He told me, I expected him to come and say, after 1 year, this one, the figures are supporting us. This one, we have managed to handle it. This one, I mean, Sam, you can go. My brother is talking about how Kenyans we have this mentality where we make everything for export. But what he's not telling you is that he's discussing the hardware. I want him to discuss the software. Why are we in that mess? You are discussing the fact that coffee is going up. That is not the problem. We started dealing with the issue of coffee many years ago. We come back to last year after the government now took over power. Vice President Gachagua said, I'm going to be in charge of the coffee. I'm going to be in charge of the tea. I'm going to be in charge of these cartels that are stealing everything. What has happened? You guys are now saying, oh, the coffee industry has collapsed. Now tea is in a mess. Oh, Then I saw somebody going to Western Province saying, we are going to make sure that Mumias is going to be. We will fix in Zoya. Well, slowly. What are you guys talking about? We now want to sell these factories. In fact, we want to sell them. We don't even have to consult the stakeholders and the owners on the ground. In fact, we can do it through parliament. A president gives his people hope. A president, that hope must be supported with data. You know, Sammy, right now you look at the American politics and you see how everybody keeps talking about how Biden is going to lose. It looks like Trump. I can tell you, Biden cannot lose that election. Why? Because he brought in the inflation bill. It was passed in the Senate and the Congress. There was money which was allocated for certain things to alleviate or to mitigate the inflation, to mitigate the poverty, to mitigate all those things were done. That is how people look at you and see what you've done. Right now, the questions I keep saying, we might default on our debt. Right now, I see a story. Look at the headlines. Some intrigues behind the 17 billion heist, something to do with oil. Corruption galore. You look at everything. The trees are a fantastic idea of planting trees. People are taking helicopters to go and plant trees. You look at all our friends around. Look at the cars we drive. Who cares? Look at the trips that we've been taught. The software of our country is in a mess. The hardware looks fine. And I know, I've had my young brother here say he really pities the president. I pity him too. But he's the president. Yeah. That's the job he wanted. So why do you want me to pity him? That is the job he's supposed to do. He needs to fix this country. He can't keep taking trips. He can't keep talking stories. Kenyans are saying, Mr. President, you see like the issue of fertilizer. Sammy, haven't you heard Kenyans say wonderful things about the president? In fact, now he should be working to make sure the fertilizer is even cheaper, because as an input, the maize is going to be grown. It is raining now. That is a success story. NHIF, money has not reached the hospitals. Look at the money for capitation for secondary schools and universities. University students are living in universities right now in destitute conditions. The president never said anything about it. He's talking about CBC. CBC right now, the budget, CBC right now, projects which are supposed to do to build classrooms. CBC, my brother, you are an MP. I know CDF has gotten some money to build classrooms. The classrooms are full. The teachers, and some of them are not being paid their allowances. There's so much that needs to be done. And many of us feel the president is traveling too much. Some of those people he wants to meet, he can ask them to come to Nairobi. He's not concentrating. He's our head of state. He needs to concentrate. He needs to sit down and solve problem 1, problem 2, problem 3, so that Kenyans can begin to say, good, good, good. Right now, everybody says there's nothing. All the projects the president has promised for the last 1 year, none has started. In fact, I was so relieved when I saw the houses being done in Kibra. At least they have come up. You can see some of these houses being built. There are 2, 3. The point is, my brother, today if I asked you about the policy on the housing appropriate, I am a senator. I don't know. I don't know who's going to buy the house, how much they'll pay. Why is that difficult? Then you have the controller of budget comes and says, you see those 2 billion, 12 billion we have collected? I don't know where they are. And nobody in government says anything.
So what is the solution? Because we keep talking about this. There are enough problems really to solve. What are the solutions? Because you guys...
No, I think we are dealing with what Americans would describe war times. You know, you can say so many things that are not happening right. So many that are happening well. But we are dealing with a very difficult situation as a country. Not brought to us by the president or by any one of us. We live in a global economy. There are so many things happening in the world. Personally, I'm happy about one thing, Sam, that this government is trying to live up to its policy orientation.
Which is?
Which is the plan that they had. Which is how to ensure that, one, let's talk about housing, let's talk about agriculture, let's talk about aggregation. I mean, I see positive work towards aggregation every day. I see positive work on agriculture every day. I see a lot of effort in reforming education funding every day.
But do you see the money?
Allow me to just tell you what I think is happening, because I've been reading this. The president has gone out of the country now severally, and whenever he comes back, he talks about the jobs he's negotiated for the young people, how it's negotiated for farms to come. And I've seen even one of the papers today talking about how the global techs maybe are going to now leave China or whatever place to come to Kenya. I mean, these things will come to fruition, Sam.
They need time.
We keep comparing ourselves with Singapore, South Korea, Malaysia. But we want to do Singapore in a year when they did theirs in 30 years. We want to leap into it without going through the paces. We have to. This is, and Honorable Nyonga, I want to tell you this, that much as all of us are hurting, actually us hurting less because we earn bigger salaries. Kenyans are hurting more. But there is an era, a generation that will have to take the flag, Sam. There's an era that will have to take in all the things we're taking in now for this country to take off. And it's our era, it's our generation. It is us who will accept these hard decisions. It's us who will have to accept these high taxes for us to be able to pick up as an economy. All over the world, where it's America, where it's the UK, there's been, I mean, Europe grew out of a terrible war. Germany was built through a serious Marshall Plan that was based on a terrible war. Singapore, if you thought about Singapore, where when you picked Singapore from, there were sacrifices that had to be made. So I believe that the plans of the country, the police orientation for me, I think are right. Anybody who wants to judge a police orientation within a year or 14 months, for me, I think is being judgmental too soon. Why don't we give these policy frameworks that are being implemented time and see how they're going to go? However, I believe that even as we give the police frameworks time, we must allow the citizens to also live. We should not allow them to die as we try to work for the future.
Sam,
and that's why.
So could I respond, Sammy?
Just hold on a little bit.
I think it's time.
I'm still with the Honorable Cheng here.
Allow me too.
Honorable Cheng, did you hear that very eloquent explanation you give here? Did you hear it from the President's statement?
I mean, you can hear what you want to hear, Sam. People use different words to say different things. Listen, the President talked about what he has done. He spoke about education funding. I can use my words to explain what he said. He spoke about agriculture. He spoke about job creation. He spoke about aggregation. He spoke about health, financing, and how we're going to do it. He spoke about them. He may not have spoken to them in the way you'd want to speak to them, Sam. But I believe that he spoke to the issues. I mean, this is not the time to be popular. This is a time to put your foot down and say, this is what I promised. It may take a longer time. But if you're going to make people laugh every time and they're hurting, I don't think it's the right thing to do. The President is being circumspect. He's being realistic. He's telling us, guys, this is where we are as a country. We got a 300 billion debt you have to pay by end of the year. I have to plan for it. We've got planting coming up in March. I have to plan for it. We got our children going to school in a broken education system. We have to fix it. And this is how we are fixing it. Yeah. So I believe, in my opinion, that the President, he may not have spoken in the, lavish language or in the flowing prose that someone may want to hear, but this is his way of speech. And I believe that there's a point in time when sometimes lancing the ball doesn't help. You just have to go for it, cut it through, let it bleed, so that then it gets to heal. So I believe that at some point in time, this country will have to understand that we've done many things wrongly. Many things. And I want to believe that where is David Ochieng that has done something wrong, or the President, or anybody else? There's always a Damascus moment. You may have had things done wrong in the past. Yes. But if you realize that you've been doing, even yourself, if you realize that there's things that I've not been doing right, you can change the way Paul did. And then do the things the right way. And so I believe, Sam, that what the Honorable Mkunji has spoken about, you go across the border here in Uganda, and from my home to the border, Busia, I drive only 40 minutes. There are people who can live in this country for 3 months without touching a single Uganda shilling because of their life patterns, their life choices. Because a Uganda in the village will serve a 4-course meal without a single cent because they use vegetables, indigenous vegetables. Ugali ni wawimbi. And they're in plenty. Kuna mihogo. Kama ni kuku, ni ile ameshika kwa shamba. So someone can survive a month without buying anything. But in Kenya, we are now importing every single thing you're importing. That's why today, Uganda is talking about 3% inflation. Kenya, 6.9%. Because we're importing so much. So we must learn, and the President has spoken about this so many times, to have a level where people think it's a cliche. Sam, we'll have to produce our own food. If we are to have hopes of reducing inflation. Let's produce our own food where possible. We have to avoid importing unnecessary things, number one. Number two, which I think needs to be emphasized more, and Dr. Bonyoka has spoken about it, is corruption. We are now having ministers, pieces living so large, people are wondering. You are telling us, turning our bells, but your ministers are flying all over the place. We're seeing the kind of shoes you are wearing and all that. It's just wrong. So there are issues that we need to deal with as a people and as a country.
Okay.
There are the issues the government love to deal with. Before I leave that space, Ndugu Sam, there are things that are happening in this country that we also need to sort out. And it's not the only president who can sort it out. It's us as a country. Like when I was growing up, Sam, and allow me to use my personal example, my parents were teachers. My mother used to earn 4,000 shillings a month. My dad, 7,000 shillings a month. There was a shop at the center, a place called Baruber, where from day one to the end, they would send me, I would go and borrow sugar, I'll go and borrow milk where necessary. We'll pick things there. The day I would ride the bicycle with my mom to share for the salary, we come back, she goes, repays the loan, we start picking again. But recently I was there, we are now having supermarkets in every center where we are taking away our social safety nets. Which supermarket will borrow you milk? Which supermarket will you go to borrow sugar? We have producers, guys producing cement and still selling cement as retail. And you produce cement in Nairobi, but you're selling the same cement next to a hardware somewhere in Siaya. How will this retailer sell? This economy generally is broken down in a way that we must replan it. Replanning it will require some sacrifices. Replanning it will require that there are things that will be done in a normal manner. So I just want to tell you that I believe that much as the president is trying to be modest, we are actually in a worse situation than we think. So let's pay our debt. Let's reduce corruption.
I hear you.
Let's live within our means. But above all, above all, I believe above all, let's just be patient.
Okay. I know, Senator Nyoko, you have a few things to comment on. But before you do that, I don't know who takes this, because you said that there are policies that the government is putting in place, including housing. I want to read you an excerpt of what the Parliamentary Budget Office said about housing. And it said, there is no clear framework in place for the release of funds from the National Housing Development Fund to be used in implementing the housing program. Further, there's a need for a review of the Income Tax Act to ensure that levies such as the housing levy are deducted from basic pay. This is a presentation they made to the National Dialogue Committee meeting at Bomas, and also reflecting on what has happened since July.
That's true.
Yet you sit in Parliament. You're not able to pursue this?
I sit in the Housing Committee in the National Assembly. But before I come to that question, I was very worried. I was very worried when you doubted my statistics.
Right.
And I can see...
I didn't doubt. I said I haven't looked at it.
From Kenya Survey's trade data, that Kenya imports and goods and services as percentage of GDP, that was the error, is 19% on import, and exports and goods and services percentage against GDP, it's 10%. So I only maybe didn't put the right...
GDP, okay,
yes.
All right.
It's against the GDP.
Okay.
I was very correct on the statistics.
Okay, carry on.
Now, let me say, I sit in the Housing Committee in the National Assembly, and I believe we are actually at the tail end of putting a framework on the implementation of housing sector in this country. And of course, I know what happened is we had to rush to pass the housing levy because it can only be passed during the budget making process that actually comes to fruition in June. But now, actually, in another 1 or 2 months, we'll start the rolling out of housing. But the money actually is with the exchequer and is safe. And it is, nobody has touched that money.
How do you know that?
We are the MDAs that we supervise are the housing department, and I am telling.
But the control of budget says she doesn't know where the money is.
Control of budget doesn't.
She's the gatekeeper. Yesterday, you didn't read the paper yesterday. Look for yesterday's paper.
No.
I have it here. Let me give it to him. Let me give it to you.
Since you're on the show, you can get the information and share with us.
Let me give it to you.
I just want to explain something about the housing, and I want to actually give an example, a factual example of what we are doing in my constituency in Manyata. We are in the middle of constructing 100 houses right now through the National Housing Corporation. And currently, every day, 75 young people get to that place and get unga and get some money on the issue of housing. I believe that is something that this country needs. And it is not about anything, but it's about the multiplier effect of building houses. I have in me statistics showing how even the contractors around my constituency have benefited by building of that house. And by the end of the day, even as the house is being built, already people have expressed interest in getting a house in that place. Only 100 houses. And it's actually, we need to phase it in to do 3 phases of it so that we can be able to even put more energy in terms of what the multiplier effect is. And I am reporting not from something that I have heard, but something that I've seen. Any country must make it deliberate to put up some agenda that is going to build and ensure that there is always something that is creating jobs for young people. And a housing agenda was one of the agenda. You know, some people are trivializing this by saying the government is only focused on housing. No, it is an agenda among many other agendas that the president has. Among them is what Amahape Onyonka here has really praised the government in terms of fertilizer. And I always keep telling the president not only to give the fertilizer, but also to add the seedlings so that we make it deliberate to ensure that people go back to their land and produce. Okay. And a good example that was given by my good friend David, that if you go to some other countries, they don't depend too much on buying things from shops. Kenya has found itself in a place where we can easily be colonized. But for and people to trade with each other, our economy can easily be sabotaged by other countries. For people to trade with each other, isn't that part of developing an economy so that everyone is contributing something to the value chain? You see, and Onyonka here said we need to work with our software. And I'm happy he's saying that, because the president never messed the software. He is actually trying to align the software. The reason I'm asking you this is because... let me say something. We have 50 million Kenyans. And even more, maybe because we always keep multiplying. We have 50 million Kenyans, which is a big market of what we are supposed to be producing. But as I said earlier, we have found ourselves in a case where we are not thinking about the 50 million Kenyans. We are thinking about the UK and the US and how they can buy our things, which is a problem because now we put our resources, our land, to produce things that actually can be sabotaged on some areas, and we find ourselves in big problems. So let me ask you, because you've said many things on how we are going to improve the economy, and you're saying that our exports are extremely high if you had to compare with imports. The imports are very high compared to our exports. Yes. But you're saying here that we don't need to buy things from shops. Yes. So how shall we grow our exports? Now, this is the thing. And I want to touch a little bit on the bill I'm developing that I have called Local Produce Consumption Bill. If you look at a place like Kericho, you fly above Kericho, you will see green land, acres and acres of land covered with tea. And the only market we have for tea is a place called Iran. Some go to a place called... we need to ensure we even package. Can you imagine, Sam, that Many people, and you see even this Kenyan branded tea, you find them being packaged in Egypt, and then they are brought back, tea bags. And that is why I want to actually put attention to you of something that we passed during the budget on the issue of reducing the tax on issues to do with buying the packaging material of what we are producing locally. Let me take you back to...
So what do you want us to do?
That's, I'm telling you, we have done
on those tea farms that you've spoken about in Kericho.
Yes.
What do you want the country to do?
You know, you go to China because they produce a lot of tea. It is actually a norm that tea is taken and it has become a culture of tea. You know, because tea, whenever some even wash their faces with tea because it is produced and it needs to be consumed. You go to all government offices, there is a policy of ensuring that there is a lot. If you go to a place, instead of serving people sodas that are coming from...
Are you saying people are consuming less tea? Or are you saying?
Yeah, we need to consume more of the tea.
So how shall we earn our export? I mean, forex.
We are supposed to just export what is surplus. But the market, the big market, just
hold on. That was
we are supposed to...
No, hold it.
Yes.
That would speak against growing our exports, because if you look at the data from 2022,
yes,
in fact, it was the highest forex earner. It was at 163.2 billion
I agree.
Shillings in export value.
I agree.
So
but are we consuming
just hold it. If you have to reduce it, yet this is one of the strengths of the country, then what is the focus?
The market abroad is well known. We know the percentages and we know everything. The market in the country has been ignored, and we have not put in the real culture, the real policies to ensure we increase our consumption locally. Last year, there was a big hit on the consumption of macadamia nuts outside Kenya. Today, you go to many processors of macadamia, it's the time they are starting to export what they did last year. And that came in because of the problems that we had with Russia, Ukraine, America, right in the middle of it. We don't consume the macadamia nuts. Kenyans don't even take the macadamia nuts that are produced locally.
But honestly, Honorable Mukunji, that doesn't help us, especially when you have to look at, we still have to import fuel, which is the most expensive product. Senator Onyonka...
What do you mean? What do you mean that doesn't help us?
Mukunji,
it doesn't help us because...
Just a minute,
you
my
see,
turn now.
Because, before you come in...
Let me just explain.
We are trying to help you. We are trying to help you.
No, you're not trying to help me.
Let me help you.
You'll put your points across.
Mukunji.
Because we imported fuel close to 600 billion shillings. We exported tea worth 163 billion shillings. I mean,
that is...
don't even compare.
You see, when it comes to fuel, we don't have a choice. We need fuel. We need to actually... I'm happy with the,
so where do
push.
Where do we get the foreign currency for that fuel if you have to reduce exportation?
This is the thing, Sam. I am not saying, and please don't misquote me, I am not saying we don't serve what we are supposed to serve abroad.
No,
I'm saying we even increase it.
You told me here,
just a minute,
sure, that we only export the excess. Surplus.
Yes, we are supposed to export the surplus and actually satisfy the market. We need to produce more. We have land, we have enough land. But at the same time, we need to take advantage of our local population. And even not local, even the East Africa population, to increase our production.
You really made me painfully listen to my brother. Very painfully. Because he's my junior, I wouldn't want to even discuss what he has said. Because, my brother, consumption is based on demand and supply. Demand and supply is determined by the revenue and income that is generated or earned. The books are balanced when you have the debits and credits balancing. Simple, basic business principles. Who produces what and for where is determined by those few elements of economics I've talked about. The reason why our country is in the mess we are in, I'll give you an example, my brother, is very beautifully, you've stated that the mistakes have been made, and David Ucheng has said the same. I want to enlighten you this way. If you wanted Kenya to reduce the amount of money we spend on consumption of fuel, and that is the fuel we import, simply in economics, what would you do? Two things. You either introduce the taxes, which the president has introduced, which then reduces the consumption of the fuel that you're having, or you then bring in a regulation and policy changes, which then will tell Kenyans, because we are consuming too much fuel, we are now going to reduce the capacity of the vehicles that we are actually allowing to import into the country. Why? Because we need to reduce the CC, we need to encourage electric cars, because that will consume less fuel. The export of tea, my brother, has nothing to do with us consuming less tea in Kenya and us expecting more. Tea is used as an income generating activity in our country. We export the tea because there is demand of this tea outside the country. What I would want you to say is that depending on whether the international market would agree, then Kenya needs to negotiate with the International World Trade Organization on tea, where you negotiate with the Arab countries which are consuming most of our teas, and see whether you can actually introduce an international auction in Nairobi where they come and buy this tea. But because Pakistan, Iran, Egypt, these are countries that are from the Arab world that consume a lot of tea, the international market auction for tea is in the Arab country. Actually, it's now moved over to Dubai because it's more centralized. When you come to the issues about what is really happening and what the president is doing, my worry, and I've always told everybody who would care to listen, and I always tell even my friends who are in UDA, my worry is that it's not that the president is not trying to do something about what our problems are. He's doing it. My fear is he could be doing it wrongly. My fear is that when he comes with a policy and we are discussing that policy, I don't see its conceptualization, its implementation, and its eventual conclusion on the results we are getting. The reason, my brother Cheng, we are not having a problem with President William Ruto that is not doing anything about it. We are not having a problem with President Ruto that is negotiating for Kenyans to go and work out of the country. Kenyans are already working out of the country anyway. What I expected him to do is to come and say, we have signed a bilateral with Germany. The bilateral is here. Any Kenyan youth who has got
those ones, Sam.
Just hold on, my brother,
Really
hold on. I have not seen any, and I'm a senator. What I'm saying, I want to see them. I want to see the agreement that the country has signed with Saudi Arabia, where we've been having constant issues of Kenyan people being killed in Saudi Arabia. I'm told the conditions are changing and Saudi Arabia has actually liberalized. I know that there are Kenyans who are going to Lebanon on their own. I have not seen a government department which is now recruiting people, 50 nurses or 50 doctors. I know there are guys who are going to Germany. There are others who are going to Canada. What we are saying is this: let the president be systematic in explaining to us how we are solving our problems. What we are expecting, my brother, my member of parliament, Mr. Mukunji, what we are saying is we are no longer even in the opposition. We are not against the government which is in power. What we are saying now, we are Kenyans. Now, can the president sit down with his team? Look at how many times David Ocheng, when Ndi is talking about how you Kenyans are on your own. You Kenyans, whatever that is going on. You Kenyans, I don't know what's going to happen. You Kenyans, everybody in government is stealing. You Kenyans, the ordinary mwananchi. And then you see what the government does the other day, Sammy. An announcement is made, I don't know by who. Passports is going to be 5,000. Marriage, all these things. And there's nobody from government who comes up and stands up and says, we would like to say the president did not make that, or there was no executive order, or there was no bill which was passed. Now look, people don't know whether I've got to pay 7,500 for passports, because some ministers are rejecting and saying, no, that's not what we are saying. No, because it's too hard to handle. All right? You have matters that are coming out about marriage. Nobody's explaining. And I'm a senator. I don't know whether the government is going to charge my son, who's soon going to marry, if he's going to pay that money. Nobody's discussing. The points we are asking the president to emphasize on: cost of living, realistic. All right, and Sammy, when I was here the other day, I said he dare not increase that fuel to 300 shillings per liter. because right now it's crazy. I travel and I'm paid well. The way Ochieng said, we are paid well, including being given money for fuel. My car to Kisii is 24,000 shillings one way. So coming back, I need 50,000 just to travel, leave alone an ordinary Kenyan who's a primary school teacher, all right, whose salary is about 35,000 shillings, who was living in a certain area, and this area where the teacher was staying was near or a little bit of a distance. Now he has to take a matatu. The fare is increasing. All right, I will not discuss about unga. Every item has increased. All the teachers I serve in Kisii County and other people of the county government of Kisii and other places, they are telling me NHIF is not functional. And yet that is the insurance policy we want to take because it's reasonable and it's cheaper. It is making us access our local hospitals in the rural areas. As I said, Sami, my brothers,
yes,
you have relatives and friends who are university students. Their money is not going to the universities. Our children are living in destitution. I mean, shouldn't I worry about that? And I'm a Kenyan, shouldn't you worry as an MP? What we are saying is, shouldn't we begin to seriously look at some of the things we are doing that are wrong? And maybe your government is misinterpreting them. The policy on funding in education, I can't even understand it.
Okay. Onyonka needs to actually be serious a little bit because these are policies that we have just passed in the National Assembly. The fact that he is talking like it has been years since the university never got their money is...
what did you say?
We just passed.
Have you talked to your student? Have you talked to your student?
Let me report to you, let me report to you that in the last Tuesday, the Education Ministry started releasing the money to the universities.
Which paper did they put?
They said...
What do you mean?
Which money? Which money? You know when money is sent,
you know, I follow these things.
They said they are releasing or they released?
You know, you see...
They said they'll release.
Of course, when it is released, it has to be disbursed. You see, there's one part to release. So, there is others to disburse.
So what did they do last Tuesday?
It was released.
To where?
They said they have released or they have released.
Which money is
we actually had a story
yesterday.
The
university money.
Still saying
is it help? Which money is it talking about, Sam? Is it capitation? Is it help?
There's the resources that go to the universities to finance the programs, but there's also the loan that goes to the students.
Those are issues I follow keenly, Sam, because I have an obligation as a young member of parliament. I follow them keenly. And it is not an easy task to actually shift from one type of funding system to another and ensure that it is well done, smoothly,
you just
without
owned
issues.
It and said it was
one of the things that happened is, outside that, the government actually made it that students can come to the university and do their things without being chased away back home. But it is also a challenge. And I'm not trying to justify anything on your kind.
My brother, you are educated.
No. I'm not trying to justify anything.
I find
the only thing I'm trying to say
is just clarify
it's important to get the facts that already the government is actually doing a lot of things as of right now.
Please clarify this for me. You said that these are policies you passed in Parliament. When did you pass the policy on university funding model?
That must be the month of after the budget, if I'm not wrong. After the budget,
you passed that university funding model in Parliament.
No. Oh, you're talking of the funding model. No, we didn't pass it, but it was a recommendation by the standing committee.
That's okay. Yes. Honorable Cheng, so tell me, again, unfortunately, I have to get to this, that enough problems, very little answers, and you're talking about the policies that government has come up with, including that housing that clearly you can see that he even admits that from the committee there's still work to be done. Is there a sense of alertness on don't leave things hanging? You need to fix them. We're implementing a university funding model that is not anchored in any law. It's just a policy. Yet yourselves, legislators, have actually not been involved in this.
I think there's so many things happening. Sam, as regards university funding, I'm so aware that the Ministry of Education has engaged the committee concerned, the Committee on Education in Parliament, and we've been explained for what it is. At least from where I sit, I think the issue is in implementation. But if you ask me how it's going to work when there's money, it's the best system you can ever have. Because this is what happens now, Sam. The Honorable Nyonka, myself, if his kids are old enough to that school, you find that my kid who is 4 years old, 5 years old, I pay for them like 300,000 shillings a term, 100,000 shillings a term. And this happens all through high school. Some of them take very high-level schools, $500,000 a term. But as soon as they get to the university, government takes over. So they're the ones who are now getting help and paying 16,000 shillings a term or a semester in school. So what we wanted to ensure in the new system is that those who can pay, because some I can't be paying $500,000 shillings for a kid in high school, and then as soon as I get to university, then I'm now not able to pay 100,000 shillings or 120,000 shillings a term. So the idea was to ensure that those who are able to pay. Those who are indigent, those who cannot pay, are paid for wholly by government. That is what the original plan was. And that's what we hope is being implemented.
Do you think that requires a nod from Parliament?
I would think so. I would think so. And that's why I said.
Because you just said that it was explained to you. What the ministry gave was 4 categories.
Yes.
The minister just spoke about 5 categories. So it appears the next one has been added.
You know, that's the point that Nyonka was trying to make earlier, that we keep shifting policy for implementing it. And that's why, at some level, we'll need to be clear on what you want to do. But in terms of just focusing on means testing as a way of paying school fees, Sam, I think it's the right thing to do.
It's the right thing.
Means testing as a way of ensuring that those who can pay. Those who cannot pay are able to go to school. But there's an issue that Nyonka has spoken about that I think we need to sort out. If you leave the school fees aside, our children in universities are living in penury. That I can tell you for sure. Children are living very badly.
It's very sad.
Some of our young girls are turned into prostitution. Simply because they can't be able to afford, because the schools, the universities don't have hostels, the funding is coming so late, capitation itself, high school is coming so late, sometimes they don't even get to 100% of what's required. And you know the reason? Like for capitation, we're just broke. The fact is that the country is broke, we can't afford.
So education is not a priority.
It is. But some, you know very well that, for example, this budget,
I'm asking,
this financial... No, you cannot use those words because you yourself... Let me just make this point on Nyonka.
Because money is available to plant trees, but not available to...
No, this year, you know, this year alone, more than 1/3 of the national budget is in education. So you cannot say it's not a priority, Sam.
I'm asking in terms of expenditure.
That's what I'm making here, that somehow we'll have to ensure that what you budget, and where you see in the budget committee, by the way, we're having this problem, that we are giving people paper money. You know, you cannot be saying you have this 700 billion shillings for education and they can't access it. And that's why we are really appealing to the government that let's stop giving our teachers and schools false hope. Why you've budgeted monies, let these monies go there. And that's why I believe, where I sit, that we start from where I started earlier. Remove the pork and barrel from this budget. Remove the fat from this budget. Focus on the things that are extremely necessary. We could do away with a couple of things. Government will not die if you didn't build a road. Government will not fall off if you didn't build some fancy, buildings in the country.
Thank you, my
it will
brother.
not.
That is
we can really focus on the things that are very necessary: education, healthcare. Deal with these things, and then put money in agriculture, and then you can move forward.
Sammy,
all right.
Sammy, we can remove the money that the Senate and National Assembly are using for traveling abroad. We give university students, they continue going to school. Who would die if we didn't travel? Sick and tired of this.
Will you be doing that?
Who would die? We are spending money on things that are not necessary.
I agree.
The president can travel and his deputy. Who would lose if we didn't spend 50 billion and we gave it to university students? Shame on us.
Sam, just
I'm out of time. Honorable Gitonga Mukunji. Thank you.
I am agreeing with my brothers.
No, Honorable Mukunji, we're out of time.
Because of
thank you for coming. Senator Onyonka, thank you for coming. Honorable David Ocheng, thank you for coming. Fortunately, we don't have time for feedback. It's too late into the third hour, actually. I have to pave way for the next conversation. My name is Sam Gituku. See you again some other time. better times, when there's more hope. Bye for now.